Shall we start? Okay. Hello and welcome to this IMX session on audio quality presented by MQA. My name is Sarah Roberts. I'm PR and Communications Manager at MQA. I'm based in London, UK. Today, I'm joined for this conversation by Andy Dowell, who is Head of Business Development, also based in the UK, and another colleague, Julian Pack, Andy's counterpart for the APAC region, and Julian is based in Hong Kong. So before we start the conversation, just a bit about MQA and what we do. The company, we're a British company founded in 2015 by serial audio innovator Bob Stewart. Our goal is to deliver the best version of the artist's recording, and that's from the studio all the way to the music fan, wherever and however you listen. We have partnerships with all three of the major record labels, so Warner Music, Universal Music and Sony Music, and we also have a partnership with Merlin, who represent the independent record label community. And since 2017, the technology, MQA's technology, has been live on artist-owned entertainment streaming platform Tidal. So what makes MQA unique? When the files are encoded, two important things happen, and that is, we refer to them as deblurring and origami. Those are simple terms for what are very complex processes. But essentially, deblurring refers to the removal of any unnatural pre-ringing, which can be introduced during the digitization process. And origami refers to the efficient packaging of the file, so it never needs to be bigger than it is. So, and crucially, that file can play back anywhere, and you will hear the improvements to the audio. However, when it hits an MQA decoder, either in the software or in an MQA product, you will get the absolute best sound. So this encoding can be done in the studio. In fact, there are Grammy award-winning mastering engineers and producers who use our tools in their studios. Most recordings are encoded in the supply chain by the copyright owners, which is typically the record labels or the artists themselves. So that's some context about who we are and why we are talking about audio quality on today's session. So I am going to start with Andy. So you've been with MQA since 2015 when it was launched. Can you tell us a bit about the early adopters and those pioneering brands that really take audio quality seriously?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. The technology was really adopted by the high-end community in the early days. This was a real natural starting point for a few reasons, really. These are companies that invest a huge amount of R&D and money in electronic components that go into these products. And they spent decades and decades refining their products to get the best out of them. At the same time, in that market, the music fans are very discerning, and they would already been seeking out the highest quality versions of their content to ensure that the source was getting the most out of this hardware that they'd spent their money on. And so at that time, really the best source they could find in the digital world was downloads. And so that's kind of where the market was at when we came into it. Because of the lengths these manufacturers go to build such products with transparent reproduction of sound, they were already aware, these manufacturers, of the challenges that MQA solves. So, but no company had really come to them before with a solution on how to fix them. So they were really excited, these high-end brands, when they learned and heard what we were doing and started implementing MQA very quickly in their products. This was world-renowned international brands such as Onkyo, Pioneer, Technics, Sony, TIAC, Esoteric, the Harman Luxury Group. So that's brands like Mark Levinson and Arkham and Lexicon, NAD, as well as some of the very high-end brands like Meridian, Sim Audio, DCS, MSB, and Brinkmann. So there was a very broad and early adoption of the technology in that market of enthusiasts and brands. In parallel, as you mentioned in your introduction, we found in Tidal and the major record labels very natural partners that understood how groundbreaking and powerful the technology was and what we were doing was. Not only in the technology's ability to deliver sound and fidelity that had never been achieved before, but also in the fact that not only does it sound better, but it's also more efficient. And so for rights holders and streaming services, this and a streaming service like Tidal that had always been ahead of the competition in driving audio quality, the partnership was a great fit. Amongst the early adopters, though, it wasn't just international brands, and we were really pleased to see some brands from China and Hong Kong that were ahead of the curve in implementing MQA. And that's because these brands really were focused on international markets. So we would see them at international hi-fi shows in Europe and in America. And so that's brands such as Lumin and Matrix, SMSL, Hibi, Ibasso and Fio, who make portable products, and then Shanling and Topping, who are two hi-fi manufacturers focused a bit more on the more affordable markets. So that was great for us to see that in that early adopter phase, we were also seeing brands out of China.
Which leads me nicely to Julian. So just as a bit of added context about the region. So Asia is the fastest growing region for MQA's business, and we have the highest number of partnerships in China. So as a relative newcomer to MQA, Julian, give us your impressions, and if you could expand on the importance of the region.
好的，谢谢 Sarah。我现在主要是负责亚太地区除日本外的商业拓展，期间接触到最多的是硬件设备伙伴，就包括刚才 Andy 所说的那些音响设备商，他们不止在国内有很高的知名度，现在在国际上也有很好的口碑。除此之外，也包括一些智能手机制造商、电脑周边设备制造商、流媒体设备商和半导体公司，还有电动汽车商等。我们看到内地领先于电动车的开发，并开始出口到我们也其中一些电动车客户展开合作的商谈。另外就是内地一家规模很大的周边设备制造商，他们的销售点遍布全球100多个国家。最近也正在推出支持 MQA 的所谓小尾巴数模转换器。除了小尾巴以外，我们包括那些台式的公模功放、数模转换器、串流器，都是最受客户欢迎的应用产品。那从上面可以看到，我们 MQA 这应用的广泛性，而这些设备硬件伙伴已经超过100多家，而其中内地和港台地区占最多。目前他们的客户的主要需求是来自海外，而跟这些伙伴商谈的过程当中呢，他们表现出就是说对内地市场有很大的期待，希望内地的音乐爱好者在不久的将来能更方便快捷地接触到 MQA 的音源。谈到 MQA 的音源， 目前在内地来索尼商城就是 Sony Select 下载有关的 MQA 音乐文档，也可以透过MQA CD。那我们看见最近有唱片公司为李健和林忆莲两位老师推出了 MQA CD 的专辑。当然，我们更加希望就是说内地的一些音乐设备服务商能推出具备 MQA 音源的串流服务。在用户规模方面，大家都知道中国目前是第7大音乐市场，而我们相信不久的将来会更上一层楼，因为内地的用户已经开始接受交费的模式。特别我们看到腾讯音乐的付费订户在第2季度已经接近7000万，当中包括了新增的500多万，这是从2016年以来最大的增幅。但大家别忘记，腾讯订户是达到6亿多，你可以看到中间有很大的上升空间。
Thanks, Julian. And so, turning more specifically to the music industry, we know that currently China ranks 7th in the IFPI league table for recorded music, but we also know that only tells part of the picture. Obviously, China is the most populous country in the world, population 1.4 billion and rising. So what are some of the things that are special and different about the Chinese music industry, so we have a better understanding of how it operates?
OK， 我同于其他地区的特色吧，其中最有代表性的应该就是所谓的在线 K 歌。大家可能会发现，在线 K 歌的市场规模已经超越了数字音乐，预计明年将会达到300多亿人民币。其中一些创新的商业模式，比方说礼物打赏共享麦克风等等，都令我们的同事很惊叹。我们有幸能与内地的卡拉 OK 设备商合作开发一些新的应用，希望很快能为 K 歌爱好者们服务。谢谢 Sarah。
Thank you. So I know you were referencing there the tipping culture and karaoke. So big revenue streams that we wouldn't see in the Western music industry. So I'd like to introduce the concept of values-based music streaming, and I think it's a term we're going to hear a lot more about. And for those who haven't come across it before, it's music fans choosing their service based on certain criteria, whether that is artist royalty rates, which service pays the best rates, or it could be on their green credentials, you know, what's their stance on the environment, what are they doing to be more sustainable businesses, so I guess this is a question for both of you. I mean, given that certainly in urban areas we have unlimited bandwidth, so people would argue, why does it matter? You know, it doesn't matter if the file is efficiently packaged or not. It doesn't impact me. What would you say to that, starting with Andy?
Well, yeah, I think it's easy for us as consumers to sit at home and stream movies and music without thinking really of the environmental impact that comes with powering the servers and the infrastructure that actually gets that content to your home or your device. There's considerable emissions, in fact, from data storage and transmission. The internet, I believe, accounts for about 3.7% of global emissions worldwide. So, and that's equivalent to all air traffic. So it's not a small number. But yet, as consumers, we're happy to come home or sit and stream music or stream movies. And we do that in a way today more on demand. So there are individual streams going to everyone's households, very different than the old approach of broadcasting the same signal to all houses, which I suppose from a CO2 standpoint was a lot more efficient. So there's been this innovation, and we can't get around the fact that humans and companies will always want to innovate, and consumers will want to enjoy better experience. So we can't stop this. You can't talk about sustainability and say, well, actually, this is bad for the environment, so everyone should just stop doing it. The world doesn't work like that. So really, the risk comes when these advances and innovations have a real detrimental effect on the environment, or crippling operational costs for companies. But I think here we need to realize that this new approach to streaming movies and music, combined with increasing quality, could have a detrimental effect if we're not careful. And so this is why really what we've been doing is quite unique in that respect, because sometimes technology comes along and it looks and sounds better, and it has a bad effect on the environment, or it comes along and it sounds and looks better and it's kind of the same as how it has been. Whereas we've come along with a technology in MQA that actually delivers better quality experiences than we've ever heard before, but actually does so in a much more sustainable way than using traditional digital technologies. So yeah, that's I think the key here is that we are innovating and we are improving these experiences beyond anything we've heard before, but actually with keeping an eye on the environment and making sure we're doing so in a very responsible way.
Julian, I think you have some relevant background industry experience to bring to this conversation, or this point.
对的，在加入 MQA 之前呢，我长期负责光通信激光器件的市场推广，而期间主要面对的一些挑战问题，长期都一直散热功耗和能源效率这几方面。所以当有机会加入 MQA 的时候呢，在了解到它的核心技术和应用后，我就毫不犹豫地答应了。因为 MQA 能给光网络提供优质技术和应用的同时，又能对以上的挑战和环境保护做出很正面的回应，我真的很感恩。要知道，目前内地的光网络覆盖率和传输速度都很领先的，一而来对高品质的视频和音频服务的追求是理所当然的。但同时呢，我们也应该关注到这些应用的可持续性和对能源需求以及环境保护所产生的影响。对。
Thank you. I'd like to turn now to live streaming, and looking back to March 2020, when the pandemic struck, pretty much overnight, everything was shut down and cancelled, including events like South by Southwest, the music festival in Austin, Texas. And I mentioned that one because MQA and some of its partners were involved in that. And because the festival was cancelled and the artists couldn't travel there to perform, pretty quickly and speedily, so the British Music Embassy and the partners involved in that, and Jazz Refreshed. We were approached to support a live streaming event that was held in a studio just outside of London. It was COVID safe and artists performed. There were no audiences. And that was to support those artists that would normally have been performing at the festivals. So the audio from these performances was encoded in real time in MQA. So it's captured in high quality, 2496. And that was streamed, live streamed, and then post performance, the videos were, we produced individual videos with MQA audio to help support and promote the bands, and those videos are still on our website to watch and enjoy. So turning to Julian, tell us about some of the standout live streaming events that took place as a result of lockdown. I did read about events like the Strawberry Music Festival that pivoted to go online, and TME Live, which was a collaboration between Tencent and Spotify. So yeah, would you like to tell us about how the industry responded and adapted?
Sure. 在上一年，在中国内地的在线音乐会呢的观众已经达到将近8000多万，其中知名的在线演唱会呢就包括有摩登天空的翟草莓和草莓星云，网易云音乐的印地维路夜啊。点亮现场啊，迎春卧室音乐节啊，还有快手的凉月，包括大麦的平行麦现场，还有腾讯的 TME Live， 像刚才 Sarah 你提起的这些在线演唱会。那最新的资料显示呢，在9月甚至不久的这个10月国庆黄金周期间呢，会有大概40多个音乐节在全国各地举行，覆盖了3、4线的城市。那依据当中有很大部分都是在线演唱会的。好，谢谢 Sarah。
From my point of view, I really think that when you look at what we discussed before on sustainability and the impact of streaming audio and video these days, in fact, the idea of sustainability and the environmental impact of touring in general had actually been on a high topic of discussion even before we were locked down. There were a number of artists that were already questioning whether they should be touring, because these big international tours that some of these artists go on, where they're taking copious amounts of equipment and staging and all around the world. So we'd already seen bands such as Coldplay and Radiohead and others who'd said they were going to hold off on streaming for a while and on touring, for a while, until they could work out how to tour in a more environmentally friendly way and a more sustainable way. But the interesting thing, I think, that came with the lockdown was this idea of numbers of technology companies and events organizers getting their heads more around streaming and what it would mean to stream an event rather than to sell tickets to actually be there in person. And born from that was this idea of the hybrid model, where actually when we were no longer locked down, people would go back to events, but actually we would keep streaming those. And that's an important topic to think about as well, because in fact, you realize that live streams from events actually help with inclusivity for maybe members of the public that don't have the disposable income to buy tickets to go to a show, or that can't travel there for any reason, or where it would be difficult for them at the show itself, maybe through from their abilities. So I think that the idea of live streaming whilst we've seen great growth in it throughout lockdown and throughout the pandemic, is here to stay. Also because the companies that organize these events will need to show some kind of business continuity planning moving forward in case we go through a similar period again. They want to be able to show that the show can still go on, and that they have other ways of bringing in revenue, even when people can't attend events in person. So
yeah, we're hearing a lot, aren't we, about the hybrid model as well. So where you're offering the live streaming option. So yes, I think clearly that's with us to stay. I think maybe it was a very well, we have services like Nugs, which has the recordings of live concerts from Pearl Jam, Metallica, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, that's served a particular audience, a fairly, well, a mass audience on a niche level, but so you're of the opinion that it's going to be it's going to be taken much more seriously by businesses.
I believe so, yes. I think, and it'll be great for the consumer as well, really, because it means that if you're a super fan of a particular band, even if you've had the chance to go and see them locally where you are, you also get the opportunity to hear them in concert elsewhere around the world. So it's good for business and for music fans alike.
Yes, and I think we're going to see the production values also pushed up as well as a result. So good news for the consumer. So we've talked, we've focused on the music industry, and certainly MQA started with recorded music. And we have been championing audio quality for some time now. But the fact that MQA's technology can be applied to audio anywhere, so for example, radio and TV, that's an interesting area to look into. And Andy, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, video quality's been advancing for years and years now. We've had standard definition, high definition, 4K, 8K. The numbers keep getting bigger, and in addition to just resolution getting bigger and bigger in video, other things like high dynamic range and high frame rate for sports and fast action. So all of these things are meaning that the pictures we are getting through to our devices are getting better and better, and these images can now fill even the largest TVs in our living rooms. What's interesting is that really the quality of audio has not followed suit, and in fact is therefore lagging. And there was research a number of years ago that showed that in fact if you have two televisions side by side with exactly the same picture on them, but one TV sounds better than the other, then in fact as humans we perceive one to have a better looking picture, being the one with better sound. So our ears and our eyes are very linked together, and therefore it's important that in the video space and in broadcast, we also focus on improving audio quality as the video quality is seen over recent years. In many markets, China being a great example, consumers will actually download content at home for watching on the go and that. So there's still even if we look at increased quality of experience for audio in these circumstances and video, there's still an obligation for the industry to do this sustainably. And so reducing file sizes means that we're doing so in an environmentally friendly way, but also that consumers can get more on their devices. So for us, the opportunity to work with video, with some of the things we've been doing on live, but also offline, and has been absolutely groundbreaking, really, because nobody in these markets has used high resolution and professional quality sound and delivered it all the way from an event to a consumer. And Japan are leading the way in this space as the nation that's really thinking about delivering broadcast or professional quality sound all the way to you as a consumer for the first time. And Wow, who are the biggest pay TV broadcaster in Japan, have been doing trials in streaming high quality video with MQA sound now. And they are one of many partners that we're talking to in this space. Yeah, not just from a traditional broadcast standpoint, but also from a live event standpoint. But the interesting thing when we think about that segue into broadcast for MQA, and it's tying in with video, the interesting side is that actually the radio community is also starting to say, well, we are now delivering our radio streams over the internet more and more. There are more and more consumers receiving our radio signals this way. And so even where there is no video in radio, we are involved in some really exciting initiatives with Music Bird in Japan, but also Radio Paradise, the internet radio station, teamed up with Blue Sound to actually stream MQA versions of their radio station for the first time. So it's all very exciting. And yes, it is tied to video, but actually we're seeing adjacent markets that are also moving away from, I suppose, where we started with music streaming services.
And so we've talked about all these innovations. What do we think the implications are going to be? And this is open to Julian and to Andy.
OK，基本上 MQA 能应用在任何能回放音乐的设备，包括大家熟悉的手机啊、汽车音响啊、电视啊、音乐8条啊、Hi-Fi 啊、数字功放啊，还有耳机啊，所谓的就 headphone。对，Andy 会介绍其他。
Yeah, I think when we look at accessories, certainly consumers are enjoying wireless more and more, but there's great innovation to bring to that space as well. We're hearing more and more people in the industry talking about wider bandwidth over wireless, which can only have great consequences on how much quality we can get over there. But I think the team's expertise in what it's already brought to market with MQA shows that we have great understanding as a company on how to get the best and deliver what is important to consumers, to their ears and their brains, to make sounds sound like natural real life sounds. So there's great opportunities for making existing wireless technology sound better, but also to deliver even better experiences in the future. Aside from wireless, I think automotive is definitely one where we will see great innovation in years to come. China, of course, is one of the leaders in electric vehicles, having done extremely well in their local market, but also now starting to ship internationally. And with these new vehicles will come new experiences, especially if we, at some point in the future, we move to self-driving vehicles. Yeah, the car space is still one where consumers and music fans are enjoying a lot of music on their commutes. And in China, the car market is growing from year to year. There's more cars sold every year. Even though in massive urban areas, they're using mass transport systems. So yeah, those are the two areas I think outside of those Julian mentioned where we'll see great innovation and opportunities for technologies like MQA to bring even more quality.
Great. So I guess we are coming to the conclusion of the discussion. So to wrap things up, I mean, we know you've given lots of examples of innovation within this space. We know from looking at online discussions on forums that there is an appetite from the consumer for better entertainment experiences and better quality. What would you like to see happening in, well, globally, but specifically within within the region?
I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, which is that we've seen this real enthusiasm in the local market from the hi-fi enthusiasts as well as the local brands, and so yeah, that's from local hardware manufacturers as well as international brands selling into the China region. But unlike in Western markets, the services and DSPs in the local market are not really tapping into and addressing this demand yet. So it's not due to lack of service or events. I think we've heard today from Julian that the amount of live events in the region has been booming and continues to boom. So it's not a question of infrastructure not being there or events or sources of content not being there. And that's where we'd really love to be having the same conversations with more services and broadcasters in China that we're having elsewhere in the world.
I can see you nodding there, Julian. Yeah, 十分同意。希望有更加多的音乐服务商能提供带有 MQA 音乐的music 给到yeah. So I guess a clear call to action, like you said, to the local streaming services and DSPs to look at their offerings and the quality of the audio that they are delivering as we are seeing elsewhere. I think that is a good conclusion to today's discussion. Thank you both for taking the time, and thank you to the organisers of IMX for enabling us to participate. And on the closing screen, there will be details of how to get in touch, and you can look us up on the website. So it's mqa.co.uk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.